In the late 4th century BCE, the Indian subcontinent was caught in a geopolitical vice. In the center, the Nanda dynasty ruled from Magadha, wealthy but deeply unpopular with its subjects. Meanwhile, on the northwestern borders, the invasion of Alexander the Great had fractured local kingdoms and left behind a chaotic string of Greek garrisons. Enter Chandragupta. Historical records are conflicted about where he came from. Buddhist and Jain texts claim he was a noble kshatriya tied to a clan of peacock keepers, but Brahmanical sources label him a low-caste Shudra. Regardless of his birth, ancient texts agree on one defining event. Chandragupta angered the Nanda king and was exiled from the capital city of Pataliputra. Stripped of his status, he was forced to survive on the fringes of society. This push to the periphery gave Chandragupta a massive tactical advantage. Positioned far from the reach of the Nanda king, he was perfectly placed to watch the northwestern borders and exploit the power vacuum left behind by Alexander's retreating army. Chandragupta journeyed north to the intellectual hub of Taxila, where he formed an alliance with a Brahmin scholar named Chanakya. Chanakya had been insulted by the Nanda king and harbored a fierce personal vendetta against the entire dynasty. According to traditional accounts, their military approach was inspired by watching a child try to eat from the center of a hot dish. This taught them to avoid a direct strike on the heavily fortified capital and instead consume the vulnerable outer edges first, gradually working their way inward. They bided their time until news of Alexander's death arrived in 323 BCE. Chandragupta instantly mobilized local forces to attack the leaderless Greek garrisons in the northwest, absorbing their weapons, wealth, and soldiers into his own growing army. With the frontier secured and his resources multiplied, Chandragupta turned his force toward the center. By 321 BCE, he defeated the Nanda generals, captured Pataliputra, and declared himself emperor of the new Mauryan Empire. Through calculated patience, a landless exile and a vengeful priest had successfully engineered a hostile takeover of an entire subcontinent. By 305 BCE, the new empire faced its first major external threat. Seleucus Nicator, one of Alexander's most capable generals, marched east to reclaim his predecessor's lost Indian provinces. Chandragupta met the Greek forces in battle and emerged victorious. He negotiated a landmark peace treaty that forced Seleucus to cede vast territories, including modern-day Afghanistan and Baluchistan, to Indian control. To seal this border agreement and marriage alliance, Chandragupta paid a heavy price in military hardware. He gifted the Greek general 500 fully trained war elephants, a force that would later play a critical role in Seleucus's campaigns in the West. This exchange established a formal diplomatic link between the Mauryas and the Seleucid Empire, signaling that the kingdom in the east was now a peer to Alexander's successors. To maintain these relations, Seleucus sent an ambassador named Megasthenes to the Mauryan capital. Megasthenes compiled a detailed account of his travels called the Indica, which provides our clearest objective look at how Chandragupta actually ran his empire. Greek writers cite a standing army of 600,000 foot soldiers, 30,000 cavalry, and 9,000 elephants. Funding this required a ruthless economic engine, collecting up to a quarter of peasant produce, while maintaining absolute monopolies on mining, liquor, and arms. Governing such a massive state required intense personal security. Chandragupta relied on his vast spy network, and tradition holds that Chanakya subjected the emperor to a steady administration of poison in his daily meals to build his immunity against assassination. This combination of military might and economic control allowed Chandragupta to hold a territory spanning from the northwest frontier across the Gangetic Plains and deep into the Deccan Plateau. Only Kalinga in the east and the deep southern tip remained independent. Chandragupta had successfully transformed a collection of conquered territories into India's first highly centralized bureaucratic machine. By his late 20s, Chandragupta sat at the absolute zenith of his life, ruling as an autocrat over millions of subjects and an impenetrable fortress of a kingdom. But his reign faced a severe internal breaking point. Historical traditions record a devastating 12-year famine. Seeing his people starve, combined with the weight of the bloodshed from his years of conquest, triggered a profound existential crisis for the emperor. In 297 BCE, Chandragupta voluntarily stepped down from absolute power, choosing to abdicate his throne and hand the entire intact empire to his son, Bindusara. He abandoned his wealth and titles to become an ascetic Jain monk. Following his spiritual teacher, the former emperor joined a mass migration, walking hundreds of miles south to the rocky hills of Shravanabelagola in modern-day Karnataka. There, he committed his final act of physical renunciation. Embracing the Jain practice of Sallekhana, Chandragupta engaged in a deliberate, slow starvation, fasting to the death in pursuit of total spiritual liberation. The man who forged India's first great empire through iron and blood ultimately proved that the highest display of power is the ability to willingly walk away from it.